Have you ever migrated applications to the cloud and the performance returns have diminished over time? Defining workload affinity is one of the best ways to ensure the needs of the business are met while you're selecting the right instances to run your applications. One example of defining the right workload affinity can be found in heavy data rendering applications. Now, let's take this rendering application as our example. Say this application needs to render graphics at a considerable volume and rate. A standard compute instance with the run of the mill GPU isn't the optimal path for that business, but what is? So, in the CloudGenera application, looking at our rendering application example, we have this set of web, app, and data tier workloads. If I click on the web server, you can see that there's no workload affinity identified. Let me go ahead and run our scorecard. In the output, without selecting a workload affinity, means that this is an A1 extra large. And we can see that in AWS, that matches accordingly. In Azure, it's a B4MS, a compute instance or a custom compute instance in GCP. And you can see the relative cloud rank scores. Now, if I go into that same workload and select rendering, graphics rendering as our workload affinity and update that, let me regenerate a scorecard. Now, the cloud rank scores aside in these different cloud providers, you see they have changed a little bit. In fact, Azure slides in as the best candidate now instead of AWS. And our compute is now an NV4 ASV4. And we've got about 20 of these instances that have been mapped. And so you can see by applying the right workload affinity, those instances change to a more GPU optimized performance class, as we can see here when we hover over this workload. So another example of this selecting the right workload affinity could be tackling general application development needs, applications that are being leveraged to develop new software for the business. And the CloudGenera workload affinity provides users the means to automatically determine the best fit instance to support their business. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to CloudGenera.